Good evening, all. Thanks ever so much for coming to the briefing this evening. It's quite historical event this coming up on Sunday, because it's it's a world first really, to hold a sort of national championships, as it were, in multiple locations all around the country. And so that, is a real accolade for the solo class, and we're really super pleased that you've all signed up for it. I think at the last count, we've got 27 clubs and 74 sailors, but that is moving really quickly now. So I think by Sunday, we're looking at over the 100 mark, and how many clubs. But this evening is the briefing for the sailors, less so for the club leads, but what they need to do, and what the requirements are to get you up and running. We're really lucky to have the sponsorship of Magic Marine and North Sails, and there's going to be some fabulous prizes, of course, which is always good. It probably mostly will be in the format of vouchers, so that you can just go and spend it online, because that's the world we're living in these days, isn't it? I want to introduce you, I want to say a massive thank you also to Simon Lovesley and James Ripley. So these are the guys who are essentially Sail Racer. They've put a massive amount of work into this. They've done all the documentation. They've been helping people up and down the country try and get onto the app. And I also want to introduce John Emmett, if you don't know him already. He's a world-renowned race coach, and we're lucky that he's going to be coordinating our efforts in terms of getting some publicity around this event, doing, if you like, live interviews around the key clubs that are taking part. So for all of those, hope this evening's useful. So I'm going to shortly hand over to Simon, who's going to take you through, I think he may have a little presentation of information, but to take you through, I can't stay with you for the meeting, because actually, as it happens, I've got a National Solo Class Association meeting, which is concurrent with this. But what I'd encourage you to do is, if you've got questions, because you've sort of been muted on the thing, because there could be quite a few of you, at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a chat function. So if you press on that, you'll see then anybody who's asking questions. If you've got questions, then pop them in there, and then the guys, John will field the questions and put them across to Simon and James. So hopefully by the end of the session, you'll have all your questions answered. I know that Simon particularly has been extraordinarily helpful to people up and down the country who've got their individual questions. You've all got his email address. But ideally, if you can sort out questions today, have a practice race if you possibly can with your club leads, because that irons out a lot of problems as well. But really looking forward to a fantastic day's racing on Sunday for a world first. And hope you'll really enjoy it. Looking forward to catching up with you after the event and handing out some prizes. Anyway, all the best to you all, and I'm going to hand you over to Simon now.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you, Doug. And yeah, as I said, we're trying to be pioneering. Bit of background. I think some of you may know. I've been running Sail Racing for the last sort of 12 years ago. 12 years or so. Been doing a lot of tracking, about sort of 10,000 events. Anyone who's been to the Sailors Winter Series will be familiar with the tracking, where we tracked you there. But with this new COVID world, things have sort of changed, and big events sort of aren't really happening. And if they do happen in the future, they're going to be different. So we're really trying to use technology to keep sailing going and consistent as possible. So the idea here is, as Doug said, is really to have multiple events across different sort of locations and bringing it all together. So really trying to minimise the sort of people coming together all in one event, and minimise the sort of shore side, and making a lot of use of the technology.
It's interesting to see actually that the proposal at the moment is to split the youth nationals between two venues. So we've obviously started something here.
Yes.
So sort of pioneering, and that may be the way of the future. Yes, I mean not so much. I think the issue of multiple a lot of people racing on the same waters being sort of overcome, hasn't it, John? It's more the shore side and the coming together.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So the first thing to mention, I mean, go back to the slide. So firstly, for those who've ordered a tracker, the first batch were dispatched out today. If anyone wants to order one, we can do this up to about Thursday, sort of lunchtime. The benefit of this is it's all ready to go. You just basically plug in, it's all allocated to you. No issues with data, it's all included in there. No issues about taking your phone afloat. So if you want to do that route, there's an order form on the screen. Right, okay, moving on. So yeah, this is the guts of it, the actual sort of event structure. Important to enter online. I think we've got about 74 entries. If you're not on that entry list, we won't be able to put you in the race. So if you see people you think should be on there, make sure that they're sort of coming in there. We'll come on to the sort of the format later. As Doug mentioned, we're going to be doing a lot of media on this. John and I will be running sort of Facebook Live sessions throughout the day. Really getting a lot of coverage between us. We've got sort of many thousands of followers who definitely will be interested in this, particularly with the absence of lots of other events going on. So great opportunity to showcase how wonderful the solo class is and how wonderful your club is. And then, solo interviews around the club. Again, using technology, but things like protests will all be handled online. So the idea is you don't get in a tight protest room and start sort of getting the issues there and various things there. As Doug said, an online prize giving. So again, trying to make maximum use of the technology. Okay. So
in terms of the interviews, I think it would be wonderful to speak to as many clubs as possible. So if it's possible to reach out to Simon before the event so we know who's keen, because I think it's just such a good showcase for the solo class, this number of clubs. So the more lead time we have, the better. And it's also the same if people get their entries in early, and then we can see, which clubs have got the big turnout and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so exactly right. So at the moment we've got 27 clubs virtually covering the length of the bet. So from Inverness down to the West Country with Salcombe and Gittisham putting in big sort of turnouts. But so there was an email that went out yesterday. Club coordinators are asking when your race schedule's happening and any sort of little bits of information that may be helpful. So why it's wonderful to sail at your club and why it's wonderful to sail a solo. So the more we can have in advance, the more we can push you out. We'll come on to the sort of guts of that shortly. So the weather forecast is looking quite good if anyone's had a look. Reasonable wind down the southwest, but good winds elsewhere. So fingers crossed. I think certainly I don't think any issues, James, using the weather forecast.
No, I don't think so. I've looked to the weather forecast across the country. Although
it is on the 19th, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Right, well spotted.
Yes, that's very true,
I was hesitating to say something in case there was another slide.
Yeah. I think
yes,
James
that image is slightly wrong, but the forecast for Sunday as well looks pretty reasonable across the whole country. Obviously, there will be regional differences, and some places will be windier and some places will be lighter, but we have the capacity to adjust for that within the results. But it looks like it's going to be saleable across the whole country, which is very positive.
Yes. And one thing that John and I will be looking at is the weather forecast, particularly around each race as it comes up to get a feel.
Yeah, maybe good for Scotland on Sunday. Just guessing. We did have a quick question about the entry deadline.
Yes, I mean, I guess we'll probably be closing off Friday night. I mean, we do need a bit of time in terms of getting things out to people. So I think Friday night gives us sort of 24 hours really to sort of turn it around. So yes, if we can get people in there, that'll be good. Right. Okay. So important that you're on the entry list on the website. Just because you're you might have done a club event doesn't necessarily mean that you're. Sorry, just admit someone into the waiting room.
You can also check the entry to hassle your friends to join who haven't joined yet as well. Don't just check your own entry, because I don't know why, but I just feel if we had over 100 boats, that would sound really good. And I think that's very achievable looking at the state.
Well, that's right. You've got some clubs getting towards double figures, some clubs just with one person. So I think if we can get those up there, we can hit the 100 easily. And I think 30 clubs will send a massive message out to the world that the solar class is the one to be in. But yes, pouring on their entry list, there are people who have been doing some of the practice races in solos who are not on here. So just because you did a practice race doesn't mean you're automatically in the real one. Right. Okay, moving on. Right. Okay. So now down to the actually nuts and bolts of it. As I said, if you're using one of the dedicated trackers, this is sort of irrelevant, but just bear with us. So you'd have hopefully all received, or those who've entered, an invitation to sort of download the app and put a code in there. The app is sort of currently in sort of pre-release sort of thing. So you'll find it in the Google Play Store, but not in the Apple one. Anyone who's been involved with Apple development will know that that's quite a rigorous job. So you need to get it sort of fully approved, and we're still making sort of tweaks. There is comes via something called TestFlight, which is the official Apple testing platform. If you haven't got that, it's probably best to download that first. So go into the App Store and download TestFlight, which is basically an Apple testing program, and then you can follow the link that comes off in the joining email. So in that email, you'd have received your personal code. So that's the key bit that makes it all work. So we obviously need to assign each person to their entry. So you enter your code, and then that will sort of fire you up into there. And then when you hit the start button, preferably done outside. Anyone familiar with tracking will appreciate that tracking doesn't really work very well inside. It depends on certainly doesn't work well in the academy. I know that for tin roofs and things like that, John. But
exactly,
best thing is to be outside. Obviously, you can be sailing outside, so that's highly relevant. And then click the start button, and you should see the numbers on the screen going up. And if you run around, you might get some good speeds going up and things like that. So gives you a live instrumentation. One slight point is obviously we probably shouldn't be reading this as we're sailing. I think we're probably gonna so really it's sort of black box sailing, so you shouldn't be seeing the instrumentation as you're sailing. So although it looks like a yacht instrumentation, it's not there to be viewed as you're going along, more to let you going. So moving on. So you've also got a link to a map, sort of effectively a holding race. So if you were in that, you'd have seen basically yourself appearing there. Yeah, I can see. I think about sort of 10 or so people appearing. If you tried it earlier, it may not have linked in because it wasn't fully sort of set up with everything. But now that's going. So if you basically go onto your tracker and try it out, the good test is: do you appear in the map? Obviously, sort of scroll around. Right. Okay. Any questions at the moment, John? Coming from you?
No, and it's all good. There was one question about the entry deadline, and that's been it. So we must be doing a reasonable job.
That's always a good sign.
Yeah. Well, we'll obviously be around really up to the time of the race. So if you do, well, as Doug said, good to get it downloaded in the next 24 hours. Have a go, and then we can sort of check out and deal with any issues.
Yeah. And in terms of the media, I know it's possibly not the most comfortable for the sailor, but I'd really like to talk to people as soon as possible after their race, so you get that just coming off the water feeling that I get when I'm interviewing the Olympians. I know it's actually much more fun to come in and get changed and roll your sail and put your cover on and be more relaxed, but actually we want the flavour of the racing and that sort of boat park banter that you get off at a normal event. Obviously spoke too soon. We just got another question in, probably to deal with offline. There's a Michael, I think it's Michael Webster. Can I enter my entry code? So probably something to
okay,
do with
well,
offline.
yes, it's probably easier if you could just email myself, info@sailracer.co.uk. We can have a look at that. So, later. So on the day, when you go into the settings button, which is one of the buttons at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a screen like this. This will tell you the upcoming races. Now, if all goes well, you should be seeing 2 races here, and these have been set at different times according to the clubs. So some are relatively early. I know the Southwest clubs are relatively late, I guess sort of around high tide and things like that, which actually will suit John and I quite well. I think we'll get a good spread across the day up till about 4 or 5 o'clock, interestingly.
And if anyone's feeling brave, we can do the interviews on the water. No problem between races if people are feeling brave, and you can do a little speed test just to make sure internet is a reasonable level.
No, it'd be awesome. And actually, we got some special prizes for the best media output from different people. Yeah. So, as John said, we're trying to really recreate what sort of John, James, and I are familiar with at World Championships. You know, where we've got the full-blown media and lots of people watching it, but trying to do.
So just set your phone to 720p. Yeah. And that's fine. That will be fine.
Yeah. And I think we'll come to the media in a moment, but actually, if we can have some heads up on that, so we can get ready for you. So on the day, under your settings button, you should see 2 races appearing. These are the races that you're entered for. This is just a sort of sample we did earlier with Doug from Portchester, and you'll be able to click on a race, and it will give you the sort of the course. So he had a course of BK 32. CL means nothing to me, but I guess if you're in Portchester, that may be familiar. I think that's a race around the piles and around the fixed buoys, which will be quite a common sort of theme. So you basically better get your race sort of schedule here. You know, the idea is you're not going up to a sort of a notice board. You see that you're going for there. Right, okay, so that's the sort of downloading the app. I think really just urge you to sort of try and do it over the next sort of 24 hours and then come back to James and I with any questions and anything that we need to sort of sort out. Now I'm going to hand over to James, who's our PRO. I think, again, this is probably breaking history, James.
Yes, I think so.
30 events. And I think John
I was just going to say, before you do that, Simon, should we just pick up a couple of questions?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Well, one is more a statement. Graham calls himself a Luddite, which which I think we can all relate to, because we're all sailors rather than... well, certainly I still consider myself a sailor more than a tech person. Okay. But apparently there's a Sail Racer app available on the App Store.
Yes. Okay.
Which can cause some confusion.
Yes, a bit of confusion. It appears there is an Eastern European company called Sail Racer, but sailracer.net sort of snuck in there with a bit of an adaptation of the name. It is a sort of tracking app, but it's nothing really like this. It's a more of a yacht instrumentation one. So the idea is you hook it up into your yacht instrumentation and take on the wind readings. Nothing really to do with solo sailing unless you've got electronics on your boat.
But good for other people not to make a mistake.
Make the mistake. Yes,
about the tracking codes.
You need to follow the links that you got to sort of download it, and you should be seeing screens like we see here. Sorry, John, there was another question.
So the question, are the tracking codes linked to our own club?
Yes, well, they're linked to you as a sailor, and the next process will be creating the club races. So your tracking code will then be going into your club race. If any club coordinators are on, you don't need to worry about the entries. We'll be effectively giving you the entries. So unlike the practice race where you could add entries, you'll be getting all centrally provided. We're planning to actually have another online briefing for club coordinators on Thursday, just to go through any of the sort of final tuning points there, and again, be recorded. Right, okay, anything else, John?
Just if Nick can say if that's clear to him, if James cracks on. Yeah. So I think James has got a world title for organising the most race courses in one day simultaneously.
In one go, yeah.
Yes, and single-handed. Right, okay, so James, now the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Obviously this event is very different to events we're used to running, and obviously one of the key differences is safety-wise. So I just wanted to quickly talk about that. If you go onto the online notice board, which is on the Sail Racer website, which Simon gave the link to earlier, you'll notice one of the documents is a safety procedures document. It would be great if everybody could download that and have a quick read of it for the event. It's quite short, just one page. It just runs through some of the aspects of this event, safety-wise, that are different to a normal event. Obviously, because we're running this sort of centrally, but all the races happening at different clubs, the organising authority have no assets on the water. So there are no patrol boats or officials provided by us that are on the water. So although your club may have a safety boat or whatever on the water at your venue, they're not affiliated to us in any way. So the key thing is, at this event more than any other, is to sort of be responsible for your own safety, which I'm sure you all are anyway. The RYA's sort of keywords are considerate and conservative. And what I've put in that document is to only really sail in conditions that are 75% of what you'd normally deem appropriate and safe for you to sail in. So, for example, if you'd normally happily sail in 20 knots, we're asking you only launch if the wind is 15 knots or below. If you're normally happy to sail in 2 metre waves, only launch if the sea state is 1.5 metres or less. As a rough guide, that's just a rough guide to help keep everybody safe. Okay, Simon, could you go on to the next slide?
Yep, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so this is just really linking to that online notice board again. If you go onto the Sail Race website, the same place where you entered, you should see the link to the documents page, and that's got all the documents you should need. Copy of these slides will be going on there, sailing instructions and that safety document. You can just make sure you've had a read of all those documents, in particular the sailing instructions, before the weekend. That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that it, James, for your bit? Or?
I think that's it for this page. We have another
Okay.
page.
Is there another page? Sorry. No, there's
Oh,
no
no,
page.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really it from me.
Okay, any questions, John, on the sort of
No
PRs?
questions at the moment. Famous
Okay.
last words. They might
Okay.
be
Yeah.
typing.
Well done. We'll come on to that sort of later. Yeah, we chance to answer questions there. Okay, so we've touched on some of this, but we intend to make this a sort of a real big media event. We'll be running, John and I will be running sort of Facebook Lives across the day, probably starting about 9:30 with a bit of an introduction, and then various sort of staging posts during the day, bringing people in, pre-recordings. There's a hashtag solo sailing, so if people are taking pictures and things like that, it'd be good if you could sort of share them around, but if you use that hashtag, we can sort of pick them up. And as sort of John said, if anyone's sort of up for interviews and things like that, if you can let us know in advance, we'll sort of get you scheduled in.
And really, to reiterate, just the more the merrier. I think actually just 2 to 4 minutes and lots of people works really well. It's not going to be Jeremy Paxman. It's just to get a flavour from all around the country, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's those little shots of what's going on in your particular venue. So even if it's just a quick sort of post out picture, you know, here's what it looks like at Salcombe, nice sunny day or whatever. So John and I can get a feel of what's going on and help us tell the story. We'll also be getting the data through from the tracking, so we'll be things like top speeds will be coming through quickly. We'll hope to process results and things like that as they're happening, so we'll be getting a feel from them. But anyone who's done any commentary and things like that, you know how important it is to have lots of material to fill the gaps when things don't appear to be happening. So the more the merrier. Right. Okay. Anything else, John?
No, I'm quite happy.
Copy that. All right. Okay. Let's bring up the sort of next sort of slide. Right. Okay.
And that's back to me, isn't it?
Back to James now.
Yeah.
Hopefully we won't have any, James, but we.
No, fingers crossed. No,
we're
fingers,
ready.
Yeah. Yeah. So really, this is about scoring queries and protests. So really, the procedure for this, we're trying to keep as familiar as possible. So the procedures are exactly the same as you would do at a normal event, except that process has been moved online. So there's 2 sections to this. One is the scoring queries. So if after we publish the results on Monday or whenever we publish them, if you think your result is incorrect for whatever reason, there'll be a form online that you can fill in that just says look, I think there's a mistake with my results. Please could you check them? That will come to myself and Simon. We'll check our records.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's just a simple typo or something somewhere along the line.
As much evidence as you can provide will help. We'll obviously hopefully have data from trackers and things like that. But if you've got your own times or things like that, some of you might even have GPX files if you've got your own sort of Garmin loggers or something like that. So feel free to submit anything you can that helps us sort of verifies sort of what you feel is a query. But
absolutely, yeah.
The important thing is it will be done online. Obviously, we're all sort of remote, but again, we're trying to create a protocol of minimizing the sort of contact between sort of people. So submit it through there. And then there will be a protest sort of system online. And basically, like the RWA form, you'll fill it online, including even drawing the pictures now. So we've got quite a snazzy little system that people have been developing for us that allows us to draw those pictures that you'll be familiar with on the bit of paper. And I think, James, you've now amassed the online protest committee, haven't you?
Yes, exactly. So again, with the protest procedure is exactly the same as we would do as a normal event, except online. So there's as Simon's mentioned, there's a protest form, which I think he's got a nice image of there, to fill in, which is online. And then if in the case we do need to do a protest, we've got a protest committee that will sit virtually via Zoom. The various parties can join in that Zoom call, and it'll be exactly as a normal protest hearing, except it will be done remotely.
Yes, and again, the more evidence people can provide that to the better. But again, you know, this is probably the way to go in terms of we don't want people sitting in rooms in close proximity. Right.
Well, quite. I mean, for the protest hearing, it's no different to at a normal event. You know, the protest committee wouldn't be on the water; they wouldn't have seen the event. So it's exactly the same as it would be at a standard event, if you like.
Okay. Any questions, John, at this stage?
No, all good. It's all gone very quiet on the Zoom chat.
So hopefully no protests. But, it'll be interesting to do it if we have to. But,
what worries me is the e-sailing, and in the e-sailing you can quite easily just sail through people or sail through marks, no problem. So people have been e-sailing for the last 2 months and then jump in the boat, and it's
well, I think we're seeing that people are a bit out of practice, so do be careful. It's,
yeah, I can relate to that.
Out to that. Right. Okay. So the next part is there'll also be no drink in the bar, but we are planning a prize giving and a virtual social on Tuesday following that. So basically we'll be looking for sort of 24 hours or so to turn any queries around and then protest, and then get back at on Tuesday on Zoom like this, just to sort of share experiences and hand out some prizes. And I think Doug said he's got some fantastic prizes from Magic Marine and North Sails. And there's a whole host of other ones, things like the Top Club, so a bit like we do with the Selden Soldiers Winter Series, based on the best 3 results in each race. So real incentive to get 3 boats out there from each club. Those who've only got 1 or 2. Those who've got fielding 10 or so, we'll take the best 3 from that 10, and they'll be in with a good shout there. Then things like the fastest speed, top average speed, slowest average speed, and so forth. So lots of things that we'll be looking to award prizes to. Just to mention about the sort of, we've alluded to it a bit, but the actual scoring will be done on a sort of effectively time on distance. So it's highly unlikely that every course will be identical. There's an ideal course. I think, James, you had some numbers on that in terms of what the ideal course is, didn't you?
Yes, I mean, that's more for the club leads within the SIs. There's sort of various rules the club leads have to follow in setting the course, just to make sure that all the courses are fair. Because although we can adjust for certain things, you know, clearly if there was a club that was just reaching up and down, they're going to have a sort of unfair advantage. So we've just put a few rules in place to sort of prevent that sort of thing.
Yeah. So hopefully we get a good balance between upwind and downwind. With the GPS, we'll be measuring the course length, so we're going to get a distance of each course, each sort of lap, and so forth. Fundamentally, this is an average lap sort of racing format. With those who are familiar with the Winter Series, it's similar to that. So you do as many laps as you can in your sort of allotted time, but then we'll take the distance of that and work out effectively a time on distance sort of a factor. And then the clever stuff is we're also asking people to sort of collect wind and so forth. But because we've got all the VMG data across the racecourse, we'll get a feel of how each venue is working. So if we're getting high speeds from one venue and slower speeds from others, we can assume that the conditions are slightly different there. And we'll be a bit of a clever algorithm, sort of dynamic handicap adjusting it there. So hopefully we'll get some sort of comparison across the different venues. The more data we have, the better. So hopefully the aim is that really wherever you sail, whatever course it is, we'll be able to give some sort of comparison. Right, okay. Any questions coming up, John? Or we could...
No, all very quiet. I think the thing for me, it's just a fantastic fun event. I mean, obviously the person who wins the event will have sailed very well, but actually I don't think that's the most important thing. The participation is just absolutely key, especially 2020 being the funny year that it has been. So I think that's a really important thing, and to try and encourage as many people to come as possible, not just the people who think they're likely to make into the chocolate. I think I probably spoke too soon, so I've just got a question whether you can put current into the equation. I've got to say, Malcolm, that's always one of my pet hates, because tide is the thing that goes up and down, and that's whether you leave your trolley in the right place so you can get it back on the slipway. It's actually current that affects the boats when we're racing.
Yes, okay, good question. Now, we're not actually asking the clubs to give us any information, although we'll be looking at tide tables for those tidal clubs to get a feel. In theory, the algorithm takes account of that, because if you're, for example, if you're punching the tide upwind, your VMG will be much slower than, say, you're on an inland club or going with it. So it should correct it. So hopefully we can correct it. But again, it will be a bit sort of interesting to see how it goes. But as John said, this is sort of predominantly about the participation and getting people there, and we'll try and get some good data out of it. Right.
I've got a question to me, which
Would you like me to ask you that, John?
Yeah, how did you get hold of me? Well, I think the easiest thing will be for you just to go dial into Simon, so to speak.
Yes, I think if people can effectively send in any requests to me, and then John and I will sort of liaise. So
it'll be just like this, if you like.
Yeah, that's right. And then so the idea is then hopefully we'll find some people that we can interview during the day and so forth, and then I'll sort of hand them over to John. Ideally, we want to bring people in on Skype because we get a better quality on the live stream. So I've spoken to a few people and they've already sort of got them up to speed with Skype. So again, if you could give us your Skype addresses if you want to kind of connect in live sort of during the day, and we can get it sort of set up and perhaps do a bit of test.
Yeah, because I'd really like to try and do as much live stuff as possible, as opposed to pre-recorded. I think that'd be really good.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? No?
Just to clarify, the Facebook page, we'll be putting it up on Restart.
Well, okay, yes. Right? We're probably broadcasting in multiple ways, so we'll put that link out there. But I think hopefully Doug will be able to sort of cross-post it, won't he? And I think we can cross-post it via probably 5 or 6 different sites. And I guess, John, I mean, you're probably all familiar with this. We can probably cross-post to clubs if they want to do that.
Yeah, it's just about having the privileges set up. But I guess the core one will be Restart. If people can't find it, that's what I'm...
Yeah. So we'll hopefully cross-post the solo one. But I think, again, if people want to just make contact during the next day, if they want it on their particular club website or something like that.
So I know some clubs and some classes are very, very controlling on their social media outlets, and some are very relaxed. So the way I see it, the more places it goes out, the better, because the more people get to see it. But, I understand some clubs and classes will have, policies in place. So
yeah. I think even amongst the ones that we know, we've probably got many thousands of people following it. So if people want to get involved in that, let's talk, over the next couple of days. Right. Okay. Anything else? Oh, is that a question coming in?
So it looks to me like we're just going to be doing it through Skype. So best to get hold of Simon beforehand.
Yes, Skype is the preferred sort of
Yeah.
communication tool, because Skype is what the BBC and co use, because it actually allows you to go in straight into the video card instead of the moment we're just going via the screen here. So you lose a lot of quality via it. So again, if people can just approach me in the next day or so, we can get that set up and possibly do a test or so. But even if people can just send pictures through, or just do their own little sort of thing offline and just send it through, it all helps.
I mean, if people have real problems, I can do stuff direct and record it, but doing it live on Skype is just so much better.
Yeah. But we're flexible. Right. Was that another question I saw come through? Or not?
I think that was just a follow up. So I think
okay.
we're there.
Right. Okay. So I think we're covered. Thanks everyone for joining us. So we'll be around sort of really up to the race end. So please do get in touch. I see quite a few more people have been testing the app. They're now popping up. So that's good. So I think we'll have a go of that over the next sort of day or so. Have a think about the media, and let's have a great day.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Right. Okay.
Great, thanks.
Thanks very much. So goodbye. We'll see you all in a few days' time, and we'll be putting this recording up tomorrow. If you have any more questions, let us know, and we'll have a frequently asked questions page sort of developing. We'll send a link for that. And, let's have a great day. Thank you very much. All right.